Hey guys, welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles! I feel like we are nearing the end of this game. We already had this cross-examination already, and we are thrown back to it. We turned things around in the last episode, and we were to choose between a submersion examination and to keep cross-examining Mr. Graydon, and he made some statements. And now we are about to choose which of his statements is to be proven wrong with evidence. So let's just get into it. I really have no clue what we are supposed to prove here, but we'll see. In the meantime, while these ruffians were jostling with the broker, I was still near the entrance to the shop. When Windybank threw Nash over the counter, I felt a sharp pain in my arm. I pursued the man, but he shot himself in the storeroom. I could see him through the peephole in the door though. The accused, in a black coat, shot the man in the back as he was trying to flee to safety. I saw the blood spatter all over the wretched girl. Then she tossed the gun out of the peephole, so I picked it up and made my escape. His lordship is only going to allow me to present one piece of evidence here. Yeah, that's the problem. We can't even press. We will be punished if we press. But it's clear what that piece of evidence should be. How in the world did Susie manage to sneak off with this without me noticing? Yeah, we got that in the last episode. This is the hole maker that Iris used a few episodes ago when we were still investigating, so she could make cat flaps for Vagahai. And she used it in the pawnbrokery? Yes, at least that's what Mr. Sean said. I was only gone from the place for about 5 minutes when I went after the Skulking brothers. What possible reason could Susato-san have had to use the Iris contraption that time? Could it be that what she did with the cat flapper mat completely changes one of the key premises of the testimony is based on? Well, so this statement has nothing to do with the cat flap. Let me just see what it's called. No, the cat flapper mat. Cat flapper mat. When Windybank threw Nash over the counter, I felt a sharp pain in my arm. I pursued the man, but he shot himself in the storeroom. I could see him through the peephole in the door, though. So this might be... What are the others? The accused in the back coat shot the man in the back as he was trying to flee to safety. I saw the blood spatter all over the wretched girl. Then she tossed the gun out of the peephole, so I picked it up and made my escape. So it could also be this one. It's either this one or the third statement. I mean, the last statement is more important, right? But he also mentions it, he already mentions it in the third statement. I'm gonna take a risk here. We do have so many tries, okay? We do have so many tries. I'm just gonna try and present the cat flapper mat on this statement.
Objection! What on earth is that eccentric contraption console?
Oh, it's my cat flapper mat, my lord. It makes a way for cats to get in and out of a room. It can cut through any door you can think of and make a new little door in the middle of it. That's right, my lord. It's a device for creating a so-called cat flaps. Small doors for cats to come and go as they please without their owners having to... I'm sure we can all work that out for ourselves. But that cat lover's contrivance has no possible relevance to this case. Oh, really? Of course it doesn't. To start with, there was no cat flap in the pawnbroker's door.
Not being a keeper of cats myself, I'm afraid I fail to see what this has to do with the matter at hand.
Perhaps it would help if I described its function another way then. This contraption is able to create a peephole in any door you can imagine in practically no time at all.
I beg your pardon? A peephole, you say?
2 nights ago, we arrived at the scene only minutes after the murder of Mr. Winniebank had taken place.
That's right. According to the paperwork at the yard, it was you, your Japanese assistant, and Shawls.
Yes, the 3 of us were together, and it's recently come to my attention that my assistant made use of this device at the time.
Your assistant did what?
There was a peephole in the storeroom door. I can attest to that. Because I looked through the peephole myself in order to see inside the locked storeroom.
This is ludicrous! What are you trying to say?
Of course there was a peephole in the door. I said as much in my testimony. How else could I have witnessed the crime if for pity's sake? Yes, how could you?
What? Counsel, kindly say what you mean.
Alright, it's time. Time to strike the final blow. What I mean is this, my lord. My assistant made the peephole in the storeroom door, and until such time as she did, the door had no hole in it to look through.
What? No!
Objection!
This is a farce. Are you really suggesting that the peephole in the door was...
Yes, it was created only after the incident had taken place by my judicial assistant using this device.
Your assistant tampered with the crime scene whilst being fully aware of the gravity of her actions? That is the most serious act of vandalism.
For which I humbly apologize, my lord. It was in the few minutes that I left the scene in order to pursue the Piskalkin brothers and alert the police. Nevertheless, in the light of this new information, it becomes apparent that Mr. Graydon's testimony is riddled with holes.
Riddled with... Explain yourself, counsel.
The majority of Mr. Graydon's testimony that appears to incriminate the defendant is based upon what he witnessed through the peephole in the storeroom door.
Yes, that filthy girl shooting the man in the back.
However, if at the time of the incident, that peephole did not yet exist in the door, there's no possible way that you could have seen what you claim to have seen. In short, your entire testimony is a pack of lies.
Oh! Order! Is there any credence in this revelation?
Objection!
None whatsoever, as my learned friend must surely realize.
Exactly! This is just some cheap trick designed to discredit me. I'm afraid not, sir. Of course it is. Do you really seriously expect people to believe that plaything can cut through a solid wooden door? Oh yes, I designed it to be very powerful. It can cut through even the toughest of doors.
That's absurd! I don't believe it for a second!
Haha, I had a feeling you'd say that.
What?
Waggy, cooey, time for dinner. Well?
Young lady, this is the Old Bailey. One does not make cat flaps in the oak paneling at the Old Bailey.
I'm not done yet, don't worry. This doesn't mean that the peephole in the storeroom door at Winniebank's was made by your machine. And there's no way you can prove that it was. No, but it's easy.
What?
The cat flaps my cat flapper mat creates are all of a fixed size, and the dimensions of the peephole at the Winniebanks are an exact match. Hee, old Silky's lost for words. Excellent work, Iris. Thank you.
And now it's my learned student friend's turn to be lost for words, I feel. I believe your judicial assistant has already left the country for your Eastern Island home.
Well, yes, that's true.
Then you may have some difficulty in establishing all of the facts. for the sake of argument, let us assume the peephole has dimensions that are perfect fit for this contraption. In that case, when was the peephole cut? The prosecution demands proof of your answer.
What is the purpose of your line of inquiry, Lord Van Zeeks?
It's very simple, my lord. The defense argues that the peephole was created after the incident using this device. But now that the perpetrator has returned to her native land, she cannot testify to the fact. There is no proof. And for as long as the defense remains unable to prove when the peephole was made, my learned friend's claim amounts to nothing more than a baseless accusation.
What? Indeed that is so, Lord Van Zeeks. Well, counsel. Oh no, I thought it was that. It was all that we had to do. Okay. Don't give up, Naruno. This is the time to create your own opening and force your way through. I don't know if I can do this, but I do know one thing. Susato-san is the greatest judicial assistant in the world. Very well. The counsel for the defense will present evidence to support the claim made. Proof that the people in the door of Windy Bank's storeroom was created after the event and not before. Oh, how do we do that though? How do we do that? How do we do that? No, that can't be it. Today's paper can't be it. The autopsy. Wait a second. Wait a second. We can examine, right? So we just examine. There is a peephole. Okay, so this doesn't work. What about the... Oh. Alright, guys. Seems like we finally did it. Let's nail this guy.
Take that!
What are you? A print from that detective's infernal cameras again?
My judicial assistant, Miss Susato Mikotoba, is an extremely intelligent and capable woman, which is why I never had any cause to doubt that she would have considered this scenario and made sure I had the necessary proof.
And the necessary proof is this photographic print, counsel.
This print shows a scene in the shop moments after the defendant entered the premises.
Agreed. And it also shows the accused mercilessly wielded a gun in the direction of the defenseless broker.
But more to the point, it pictures the storeroom door in the background.
Let me see that print again. I don't believe it. This is really quite remarkable. The door to the storeroom is completely devoid of a peephole of any description.
Ah! Mr. Graydon, you couldn't possibly have witnessed the crime as you claim to have done, because at that time it happened, there was no peephole in the door. Ah! In other words, your testimony is a catalogue of lies.
Order, order, order! I am satisfied that the defense has substantiated its claim beyond all reasonable doubt. This witness's testimony was entirely fallacious. That's not the only thing we know now beyond all reasonable doubt. My learned friend culprit's assistant's guilt can no longer be denied. The woman tampered with a crime scene. But more importantly...
Good lord, there's more, Lord Von Zieks?
The defense may have established a reprehensible instance of perjury. But that is no proof that this man is the victim's killer.
Oh, come on, Zieks. Zieksy, come on.
Yes, that's right.
What? I was there at the scene, it's true. And I was shot in the arm, it's true. But that's all. Yes, in fact, if you look at the circumstances, I am the victim here. Oh, please. No! That can't be, come on. I don't believe this. But they're right, as it stands now. I don't have any definitive proof that he is the culprit. Still, he can't worm his way out of it now. He can't worm his way out of it now. Iris, you know what they say. There's no point locking the cat's door after the cat has bolted. Isn't that right, Bruno? As Hurley always says, one lie begets another. No, wait, that might have been a line I wrote from him in one of my stories. Well, no matter who said it first, you're right. Mr. Graydon, not only did you give false testimony to the court, but the lies you told make no sense. Make no sense? What do you mean by such a remark? What you said in your testimony reveals that you know something you shouldn't have known. In other words, there's a fundamental inconsistency in your statements. What?
Objection!
This is provocative talk, counsel. Won't you enlighten the court? Explain this alleged inconsistency.
Iris was right. One lie begets another. The inconsistency is revealed by the lies in the witnesses' statements. They show that Mr. Graydon had knowledge of something he shouldn't have known anything about, namely... Okay, so the third gun is not what we're looking for. The peephole came afterwards, so it must be the bloodstains on the coat, right? The third gun doesn't make sense. He knew about that. So it must be this. Let's go. The bloodstains that were present on Miss Lestrade's coat. That's right. The victim's blood splattered all over her when she shot him. But how could you possibly have known that? Obviously, because I saw her do it through the peephole in the... The point is not that you lied in your testimony, Mr. Graydon. It's the nature of the lie you concocted that is so revealing. You're not making any sense. Then let me ask you a simple question. How is it, Mr. Graydon, that you knew of the existence of the peephole in the storeroom door? What? Well, obviously I... Has the cat got your tongue, witness? The peephole in the door was made after the incident occurred. And once I returned to the shop having failed to catch the two burglars, Scotland Yard's investigators arrived immediately. Since that time, the police have been at Winniebanks constantly carrying out their investigation. Isn't that right, Inspector Gregson? Well, yes, of course. The place is chock full of pawned articles and my lads have to thoroughly examine them all. So I gave the order to have officers working around the clock in shifts so we get through it all. And consequently, there is no way that you, Mr. Graydon, could have gained access to the shop. Therefore, you should have known nothing about the people in the storeroom. So the fact that its existence forms the basics of your testimony is completely inexplicable.
Objection!
And yet, the fact remains that Mr. Graydon did maintain that he witnessed the crime take place through the people in the door.
How on earth is that possible? Could I have a word, please, Lord Van Zeeks?
Speak, Inspector.
It's just that I really ought to be getting back to the station now to put in my reports. There's really nothing more I can add to this testimony, so if it's all the same to you...
Permission denied.
Oh,
It's not all the same to me, Inspector. Not at all. You will remain exactly where you are until this trial concludes.
of course, sir.
Mr. Graydon? You shouldn't have known about the existence of that peephole. Which can only mean that you must have been informed about it by somebody else. Oh!
Objection!
Stop there, my learned friend. You realize, I trust, that the words you just uttered have extremely serious implications.
Yes, but the defense believes that the details about the case that Mr. Graydon claims to have seen must have been revealed to him by a certain person before his testimony. And in fact, considering a particular clue we have, there's really only one person that could be. Who is the person in question, counsel? Who gave this witness details of the crime scene to facilitate his false testimony? Well, it must be Mr. Gregson. There is no one else that could have done it.
Take that!
The truth is, it can only have been you, Inspector Gregson.
Oh, me?
Objection!
You had better have some proof to substantiate such a rash claim, my learned friend.
Consider the fact that we have only been aware of Mr. Ashley Graydon's identity for the last few hours. We learned of it only during the course of the trial today. Indeed, preparations for his testimony were made with great urgency during our hour-long recess, while the police executed the subpoena and brought the man here from the communications station. And until that time, Mr. Graydon would have had no idea. No inkling that he would suddenly be required to appear in court. Are you suggesting that until such time as he was summoned? Yes, my lord. Until then, it's reasonable to assume he knew nothing of the people. It was only once Mr. Graydon was on the stand that he realized his position. That he would have to defend himself against the accusation that he was the third intruder.
You're suggesting to the court that it was while this trial was in progress that he received that information so that he could commit perjury in order to save his skin?
Exactly. And the only person with knowledge of the investigation that he had any contact with is you, Inspector Gregson.
This is a bloomin' outrage! Why would I be giving away details of our investigation to this fella, huh? I was summoned to his lordship's chambers during the recess in any case. Had you forgotten that?
Quite true. I had a number of questions regarding the events that transpired at the Prom Brewery.
Which means the first time these two laid eyes on one another was after proceedings resumed following the recess. Since then, they've been in full view in the stand where such illicit discussions couldn't possibly have occurred.
Ooh, I've just remembered something, Runa. What is it, Iris? There was one time before, wasn't there? I think it was when Ginny was testifying. Oh yes. Now you mention it. When the bailiff was dispatched to retrieve McGilder's music box from the scene of the crime. That's it. It was during that testimony. Yeah, they were talking. I remember finding it strange at the time. We actually pursued them without any consequences. Mr. Graydon and the inspector seemed to be having some kind of secret discussion. It would have been possible for you to give Mr. Graydon the information he needed then.
You little toe rag! You're making all this up! I'm a respectable Scotland Yard inspector, for crying out loud! Why would I do something like that? Why would I be giving away confidential details to the likes of this bloke?
Admittedly, you wouldn't have had any reason to do something like that for no gain. But perhaps it was part of a deal of some kind, then it starts to make more sense.
What deal, Counsel?
I wonder if perhaps in exchange for details about the people at the crime scene, Mr. Graydon agreed to give a certain something to the inspector. I'm sure I need to remind the inspector that, if found to be true, striking a deal of any kind with a witness would be considered a gross case of malfeasance.
Well, I...
Objection!
It's becoming clear that jumping in with accusations is this Nipponese student's specialty.
I don't do that.
But with the stakes so high, the prosecution is not prepared to listen to baseless charges. It is incumbent on the defense now to present evidence in support of this diabolical claim.
Evidence?
Just what are you proposing that the inspector demanded of the witness in return? The court must see proof of this alleged deal.
If Inspector Gregson really did strike a deal with Mr. Graydon, then logically, there's only one thing he could have asked for. That must be it. Bruno, do you think it could be? Yes. It's the missing link that would join all the dots together in this puzzle. I must press you for an answer now, Counsel. What evidence explains the nature of the alleged deal that Inspector Gregson made with the witness? Well, it must be the music box, if you ask me, guys. Anything else doesn't make sense, because we're still missing a disc for this. And that's what would pull things together. The bullet doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense, the music box disc would maybe make sense, although we are missing the second link, and the music box is that what demands it. Also, in the description, okay, we don't have an update, or maybe it's not. It's not the stereoscope, it's not these things, it's not the guns, which wouldn't make any sense, it's not this, it's nothing of these items, it must be the music box. So I'm gonna present the music box.
Take that!
Inspector Gregson, beside this murder, is it not true that you've been working on another very important case?
What? Are you getting it now, sunshine?
Is it possible that this other top secret case is what's alluded to in this newspaper article here? The classified secrets being leaked overseas from the Ministry of Justice.
How the bleeding Nora could you...
We discovered during the course of this trial the music box deposited at Whitney Banks by Magnus McGilded. A special music box designed to play 2 discs at once. It would seem very likely now that encoded on the pair of discs that were in McGilded's possession are the leaked classified secrets. So I put it to you, Inspector, that in order to recover the second of the discs containing those secrets, you coldly made a deal with Mr. Graydon in which you exchanged the disc for details of the case.
You little... Ah!
Order, order, order! On the day of the incident, when we met you at Whitney Banks, you said this.
I'll be taking whatever it is of McGilder's down to the yard, thank you very much. So hand it over. No, don't give it to him. It's mine, that is, mine. I'm sorry, miss, but anything belonging to McGilder has to be taken in as evidence now.
Scotland Yard already knew at the time, isn't that right? That Magnus McGilded was involved in the stealing of government secrets.
My orders were recover the medium used to convey the secrets leaked from the ministry, and do it on the QT, strictly hush-hush.
And that explains why, when presented this disc as evidence to the court, you objected so heavily, I presume. Because you knew it contained highly confidential information.
Blimey, not likely. I mean, I wasn't that sure of it myself. I realized there was a possibility, that's all.
Inspector, surely you're not saying that in order to acquire the second of these music box discs, you did indeed reveal confidential details of the crime scene to the witness. To aid and abet this man in giving false testimony. There's no other way that Mr. Graydon could have known of the existence of the peephole. It's the only explanation. A deal was struck between these two men.
No, God!
Objection!
If, and I stress, if, this sobering assertion turns out to be founded in truth, it would mean that the second disc, as we speak, here in this very courtroom.
Wait, what? In this room? How could you possibly make a claim like that? Because Inspector
Gregson is a Scotland Yard detective.
What? What's that supposed to mean, huh?
As a seasoned policeman, the inspector will have approached this alleged deal with caution. Certainly, he would not have accepted a gentleman's agreement in this matter. No, he would have insisted on having the article agreed upon in the palm of his hand.
Good gracious, then, you mean to say? Inspector Gregson already has the item in question in his possession. He has the second disc actually in his person.
Yes!
The defense demands that the inspector is searched at once. Definitely! They could only have struck a deal with each other when Ginny was testifying before, and Grexy has moved from the witness stand since. My lord, please, order an examination of this personal effects immediately. Well, Inspector.
This young lad wants to tone down his imagination. He's insulted me and my profession quite enough. However, if it'll put this matter to bed and dispel any doubts about my involvement, then I'll happily submit to a body search.
What? He's going to agree to it?
I presume you're aware of the precipice on which you now teeter, my learned student friend. You've made a most serious allegation against Scotland Yard here. If, following the search of the inspector's personal effects, no disc is found, you will be deemed unfit for court service. This trial will end, and my country's government will formally demand of yours that you are severely reprimanded.
That sounds serious. Indeed, to have a visiting student make such a defamatory remarks about our country's most senior police force is not something Her Majesty's government will be able to overlook. You're just threatening Reno because you're scared.
The accusation is beyond serious. You must be prepared for grave consequences.
It's true. I can't imagine Gregson would have accepted a gentleman's agreement for something so critical. The disc must have physically changed hands, which means the inspector should have it. But But somehow, something doesn't feel quite right here.
Very well, Counsel. You know the implications, so let me ask you one final time.
Yes, my lord?
Do you still persist in formally requesting a search of the inspector's personal effects?
Well, guys, I'm really sorry, but we have breached the half-hour mark quite heavily. And I think this is really the very last question, and I promise I will upload the next episode immediately after this one, so you won't have to wait, I promise. But it is so far for this episode of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Tune in next time to see how things unfold.
See you then.